Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. This is going to be a little bit of a different video. So for May, I am not doing my Bookopoly board here because I'm kind of wanting to mood read and I've been kind of slumping. So spoiler alert, I failed my April TBR so bad. I think I've read 3 of the 15 books, I think, and it's the 21st when I'm filming this. I'm actually filming this while counting down the minutes to the Heartstopper TV show. We're at like an hour and a half left for the wait, and I'm like too hyper to sleep. So we are going to do, for the month of May, Bookopoly recommends you books. So how this is going to work is I'm going to do 8 roles, and for every role I'm going to recommend 2 books that fit the prompt. And yeah, I originally was gonna do 1, but then I was like, why not 2 to challenge myself, because these are all books that I have read that fit the prompt. So there was one prompt that I had to kind of stretch and was like, I don't know how I'm gonna interpret this, but you will see that. So I will insert the clip of me doing the role and then talk about the book. So I've already explained how this is gonna work. If I land on a space that, for example, like TBR vet, I will figure out how I can interpret that to be a recommendation, because obviously I can't recommend a TBR vet if I haven't read it. So, I don't know, that was just the first one that popped in, so I'm just gonna roll. So, okay, that is 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Other genre. So for roll 1, we got other genre, and I classify other genre as something that is not romance / like a contemporary romance or fantasy, as those are my 2 main genres. So the first book, you are not going to be surprised, is Iron Widow by Ziran J. Zhao. This is a sci-fi fantasy cross. I'm not going to explain these books in too much detail because or else we'll be here forever, but this essentially follow Zacian, who becomes a pilot, and pilots in this world fight these kind of like these aliens that are in, like, they fight these aliens in these big, like almost like mecha suits. And it has a poly relationship, and yeah, I think that's just what I'm gonna leave this at. I love this. This was one of my favorite books of 2021. Actually, no, it was my favorite book of 2021, and it's like a sci-fi. Who would have thought? And the next book I'm going to recommend is The Haunting Life of Huntley Parrish by Stephanie Ann. This is a ghost story. It's the easiest way to describe it. Essentially, we have 17-year-old Huntley Parrish who can see ghosts. She is a ghost hunter, and there is this mysterious Moncrat manor that she wants to try to figure out. She wants to try to figure out a way to expel the ghost that lives there, but nobody has been able to. And this is a indie book. If you like Supernatural, you'll love this, because it's basically Supernatural with a badass female main character. Roll number 2 is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So physical. So then for physical, so I have to recommend you something that I physically own. And I have 2. They're also very different books. So one is Some Girls Do by Jennifer Duggan. This is a sapphic contemporary where we follow Morgan and Ruby. Morgan is a track star who got outed at her last school, and she switched schools, and we follow Ruby, who is a beauty, she does beauty pageants by day and works on cars by night, and it's the 2 of them. They kind of have this, not rivalry, but they have this bickerness. They bicker back and forth, and then they form a cute romance. I love this. And then the other one is The Cerulean by Amy Ewing. This we follow Sarah, who she's a cerulean, and ceruleans are these people that, well, technically it's a race of females that live in the city above the sky. So essentially it's like a city that's above the sky. It is all female. They have a cool way of reproducing with only females. I love it. And essentially, Sarah is then put up as a sacrifice, as when the city has to find a new planet to find home, a person is sacrificed, and instead of her dying, she ends up discovering that there are people on this planet below, and she has to find her way home. And I really like this. I don't know, I feel like I haven't heard anybody talk about this book, like, ever, and it was like, I think it was like a solid, like, 4.5 maybe? Or did I give it 5? I don't remember. I remember loving it, and honestly, I wouldn't say no to doing a reread soon. It was really good. Rule number 3 is 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A book with POC rep. The next row was POC, and this prompt was perfectly because I literally bought this book today, and that is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This essentially we follow Brie Matthews, who she has been accepted into this like university program for high school students, aka you take university classes while finishing your high school degree, and she ends up discovering that there's this secret society that is like, how do I even describe this? Oh my gosh, I love this book. It's just, but basically there's this secret society that is linked back to the days of King Arthur and his knights, and they are descendants, and there is this magic, and it's so good. That's all I can say. I'm struggling to describe some of these because they're just so good. Literally, if you have not picked this book up, please do. The next book is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. Now this we follow Yadriel, who, to prove to his family that he's a real Brujo, he ends up summoning the ghost of a boy named Julian from his school, when he was actually supposed to be summoning the ghost of his dead cousin Miguel, and it is them having to figure out how Julian died, and also other things. And I love this book. I've read it twice. It's always a fall read. I will never shut up about it. I love it. I'll be reading it again this year. If you haven't read it, please go read it. Rule number 4 gives you 3. So now we're 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 3. Oh my god. So humans, I apparently can't do math. Rule number 4 gave us humans, so books featuring humans. This is another book that if you know my channel, you know that I will not shut up about. The Foxhole Court by Nora Zakovic. This, I fucking love it so much. But this we follow Neil, who ends up getting this scholarship to attend this university to play Exie, and Exie is essentially lacrosse played in a soccer-sized field with the violence of hockey. It's like a made-up game, and Neil is reluctant to accept the scholarship at first because it will bring him to the spotlight because this team is like well known, but he accepts it, and yeah, I love this series so much, and yeah, it features humans. Boom, it counts. The next book I'm going to recommend for humans is Docile by S.M. Zapara. And this is a kind of slightly, it's like a futuristic dystopian almost, where essentially debt is awful, your parents' debt gets passed down onto you, and for some people they end up becoming what is called a docile, and dociles are essentially slaves to the rich. They do whatever the rich want them to in exchange for the rich paying off the debt. And we follow Elijah, who ends up wanting to kind of help pay off some of his family's debt, and a rich guy named Alex, and Alex essentially agrees that he will pay off Elijah's debt if Elijah becomes essentially his docile, which is essentially a slave. And typically dociles work under this, typically dociles, when they're working, they end up taking this thing called Dosaline, which is almost like a drug that makes them kind of like forget everything, and Elijah refuses to take it, and it is the complex story of the two of them falling in love, but realizing that it's technically not love, and I love this book. I want to reread it, and I just read it last year. It's really good. Rule number 5. I find it hilarious that so far, when this actually isn't my TBR, I haven't gotten any doubles yet. So let's go through rule number 5. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Who? The next prompt was who, which means an unknown author, and these are authors that were unknown to me until I found out about their books, basically. So the first book I'm going to talk about for who is Not Quite Out by Louise Willingham, and this we follow Will, who's he's done with relationships, he's just wanting to focus on school, but then he meets Daniel, and the two of them become friends, and then feelings happen, but Will is not out. He's not out to anybody, and so it is the story of the two of them becoming friends and Will coming out, and I loved this because I relate to Will so much. And Louise Willingham is a indie author, and I really enjoyed this. It's just a cute book, and by an unknown author who is currently, I think, trying to get more books published, so definitely go check them out. And then another author that a lot of people don't know about is Carol Anderson, and the book I'm specifically going to talk about is The Frost Eater, as this is the only book by her I own, but I've read 4, I think. But in this book, essentially we follow Nora and Cray. Nora is the princess of this country, and Cray is a villager who, when Nora and her father go out on a tour of the country, Nora and Cray meet, and because of Cray's ice magic, he's ice magic and the ability to fly, Nora kind of convinces her father to allow Cray to come back to the castle as an apprentice, for an apprenticeship, and Cray does this because his girlfriend Asia has been missing for over a month, and nobody knows where she is, and they believe that she's somewhere that she actually isn't. And then Nora and Cray set out to go find her, and I love this world because the way that the people get their magic is they ingest what they are, what they have their powers. So Cray has to ingest ice for his ice magic and feathers for his flying, and I now have the urge to reread this. Oh my gosh, is that just what this is gonna be? Is I want to reread all these books. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I definitely recommend Carol Anderson. She's such a wonderful person, and all of the books that I've read by her have been 5 stars. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. Rule number 6 is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So lowest rated. So for lowest rated, I kind of had to interpret this some way, because I'm not just going to go and recommend you the lowest rated books, or the books that I rated the lowest, but I'm saying any book under 4 stars that I still would recommend people. And one of them is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This I gave 3.5 stars. I did fairly enjoy it. This we follow Michael, and it's just, we see his life from him being in I'm trying to remember, primary school up until university, and it is told in poems and in verse, and this was a really good read. I felt like there was things missing, and it could have been because it was jumping through time and through the way it was told, but the story that was told was really well. So I still would recommend it to people. It was just only a 3.5. Which is still a good rating. I don't want to say, oh my god, a 3.5 is bad, but I'm saying, I normally wouldn't recommend things that are under 4 stars that I gave. So, yeah. And the other one is Captive Prince by C.S. Pacat. I don't know, this series stands out to me. This essentially follow Prince Damon, and he ends up getting essentially stripped of his throne by his older brother and sent off to be a slave for this other country that they're kind of at war at. and yeah, I've only read the first 2 books in the series. Both of them were 3 stars, but like a good 3 stars. There's a good 3-star and a bad 3-star. This was a good 3-star, if that makes any sense at all. Roll number 7, and we finally got a double. So that's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is audiobook. Then we got a double, which just means we're adding an extra set of like 2 books. And this was audiobook. I don't listen to very many audiobooks, so I'm just gonna recommend one. And that is The Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I recommend the whole series. Illuminae is the first book. I love this series because I love the audiobook because it is full cast. It is beautiful. Again, I want to reread it, and I just read the series last year. But essentially, in this, we follow Caddy and Ezra, and they are the survivors of this attack on this planet, Kerenza 4. It's more of like a mining colony, but planet of Kerenza 4, and it's... how do I even describe it? But it's heavy sci-fi. The way the book is told is in like mixed media. So the audiobook, especially reading it with the book, you're able to like get this whole experience that is beautiful, and I loved it. I don't really have any other thoughts except I recommend it so much. Like, probably my favorite audiobook I've ever listened to. I've only listened to maybe a dozen, but still. So now we're doing 9 instead of 8. So this is 8 out of 9, which is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Start a new series. Roll number 8 gave us start a new series, and for those, I have 2 fantasy recommendations. One is Divine Blood by Beck Michaels, and this is the start of I think it's going to end up being 7-book fantasy series. Only 2 are published now, and in this we follow Dinah, and every 10 years in her village, this mysterious shadow demon monster thing comes along and kills people, and the last time it happened, it killed Dinah's father, mother, and brother, and she now wants to find a way to stop it, and she thinks she knows a way, and so she sets off on this adventure. Her cousin Zev joins, and then a celestial named Cassiel joins them, and yeah, I love it. It's the first book of the series. And then the other book I recommend is Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. This is the first book in a trilogy. All the books are published. You can actually see the rest of the series right there. But in this we follow En, who ends up traveling to the city of New Rains after her mother has disappeared, and En was sent a letter basically said not to find her mother, but she does the opposite, and she ends up asking a gang leader named Levi for help, and I love this series so much. And I just love this series so much. It was the first high fantasy that I ever read. It will always have a place in my heart. It is full of queer characters, diverse characters, and yeah, I love it so much. This I actually need to do a reread of because it's been over a year and a half since I read the final book. So I actually might do a reread of this because I love it so much. And the final roll is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Humans again. And the final set of recommendations also was human, so I had to find more human books. And I picked 2 contemporary for this, and one of those is Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. This we follow 3 siblings, Grace, Maya, and Joaquin. They don't know they're siblings, they're half-siblings, but they don't know that they're siblings because Joaquin has been in the foster system, and Grace and Maya were adopted. And when Grace ends up putting her own daughter up for adoption, that leads her to wanting to discover more about her siblings, and that's what happens in this. This is an emotional roller coaster. You will also see this in a book recommendations coming in May, I think, of books that made me cry. And yeah, it's like a hard-hitting contemporary. And then the final book I'll recommend is Under Shifting Stars by Alexandra Lados. And in this we follow Claire and Audrey, who 10 months ago they lost their older brother, and we have Audrey who's trying to deal with the fact that of her school. She doesn't feel like she fits in because she has ADHD and autism, so the way that she thinks and perceives things is different. And then we also follow Claire as she's dealing with the grief of her brother, and then also dealing with things about her gender and sexuality and all of that. And this is a really good book. It is set in Canada, fun fact. And yeah, this is overall just a story of two teens just trying to figure out their lives and their relationships with each other, because their relationship is strained, as one might if you lose an older sibling. So yeah, those are it is 17 book recommendations, because I only recommended one audiobook. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was fun to make because typically when I'm looking at my roles, I'm like, what book do I want to read? Not what book do I want others to read? And I really hope that you found at least one book that you've never heard of or that you're interested in. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, I guess, what I just said, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, bye!